All right, welcome everyone to today's session. Today we'll be finalizing our department service, and then we'll be able to have a look at writing unit tests and integration tests for our application using test containers and Mockito. And lastly, we'll be able to configure our coverage report so that whenever we run our test, we're able to get a document representing the coverage of our code in terms of unit testing, so that we can be able to ascertain the quality of our service or our code that we write. And in this case, we'd have an end-to-end view of how our service works, and then at the same time how you write unit tests for the repository layer and the service layer, and then at the same time doing integration tests which runs through the controller to the database. And we'll be making use of throwaway databases using test containers. So sit back and relax and enjoy the session. All right, so from our last session, we are going to start off with the department controller class, whereby we exposed the API as the base as API department, and we'll be proceeding now exposing our endpoints on this particular controller. So to get started, we are just going to do a post mapping endpoint, whereby we'll be able to allow us to create posts. And to do that, I'm going to make use of the same path as the base class, which is just annotating this particular method as post mapping. And from there, we just to create, make a request to this particular endpoint using a post request, and then at the same time, we'll be able to have a post response. So in this case, we are going to create a new class, which is going to be created as in a few, which is going to be department create response. So we are going to have one particular class, which is going to be department create response, and then thereafter we are going to do another class which is going to represent our request, which is going to be our department. So we are going to have a request body, and then within the entity that we are going to receive as a payload, we are going to have a department request. So we are going just to have this one as request, and then we are going to assign a variable which is the same. Sorry, in this case we are going to have that as department request. Then we need to have these two classes. So I'm going just to have department request and department response, so that I don't communicate the intent of this particular class at hand. So as you can see, we require two classes to represent our department create response and also the department create request. So in this case, we are going to introduce another package here, which is going to be model. So I'm going to have a new model class folder here. And this one, we are going to have one particular class, which is going to be department response.java. And in this case, we are going to quickly annotate this one as that data from Lombok. And then we are going to have at all args constructor, and then at no args constructor. Then all this given, so the department response is going to contain all the fields which are in the entity class, which is going to be the department number and also the department name. So we need to copy these two fields and have them within the department response. So we are going to return this one to the user and these two fields. Now let's see what will be the details of the department request. So we are going to create another class within the model, which is going to be department request.java. And then with this, we are going to annotate this one as at data, and then at all args constructor, and then we are going to have at no args constructor. And let me introduce one additional annotation for at builder. And for this one, we are going to expect only one particular request, which is going to be the department name. So we expect to have that name here as the request. So I need to also have this builder annotation on the department response, that I'm able to make use of the builder class generation. So we have our two classes. Now let's go here and import this. So we are going to import that, and then quick fix import that. So that's all, and now we need to give our method the name. So it is going to be create. It's going to be create department that way. So you need to have our method known as that. Now here we need now to call our service layer to be able to save with this particular request and then send that particular payload there. So what you're going to do, we're going to have our department service, and then you're going to call the same method as create department, which at the moment doesn't exist, and then we are going to refer to the department request. So we are going to supply this as the argument. All right. Then from here, whatever the return type for this particular call is what you're going to return. So you're going to give the return keyword here, right? So you can see now within the department service, we don't have this particular method defined. So we need to quick fix and add that particular method within the department service. So once you do that, automatically to be able to generate the required signature for the method, then we need to do the implementation of this particular department create response on this particular department service implementation. So to do that, we are going to have a quick fix again and add an implemented method. Now for this one, I remember from our last session of the employee service is that whenever you are creating the data to the database, we'll be making use of the department repository. We need to send an actual department entity. Now we need a way of mapping between the department request to the department entity, and then the department entity to the department response. And with that, we require some few dependencies that we introduced here, which is going to be the model mapper. So we need an instance of the model mapper to allow us to convert in between the different scenario or classes. And to get started on the conversion, we are going to go to the department service package, create a new package. Is going to be the config, and then this particular config, we are going to have the model mapper config.java. So we are going to have that, and then to make this particular model mapper a class which is injectable, we are going to have this as you're going to have this one as at configuration. All right, so which is coming from a Spring Boot annotation. So we're going to have at configuration class, and then we need a bin of the model mapper. So we need a bin at bin, and then we are going to have model mapper, then model mapper, then into brackets we are going to have a new instance of model mapper. So you're going to have a new instance, and that is what you are going to return as a bin, a CDI bin, which you can be able to inject. So I'm going to copy this model mapper, this one, and copy that, and go to a department service. I'm going to have this as private final. I need to inject the model mapper here using copy this and then bring it here. So you're going to inject that, and remember, once we make the particular field as final, we need to initialize that particular field. So I'm going just to have the same as the argument, and this particular injection will come from our bin that we have just defined. So from there, we are going to switch off the department repository here, and we are going to have our model mapper. So let me expand that so that you can be able to see clearly. Now the next thing that you're going to do here is now to do the saving of the department request. All right, so the first thing that you are going to do is, whenever you're creating a department, we need to have unique department names within the database. And to do that, if we check on the department class itself, so we go to the entity, you can see that we have this department name as being unique. So ideally, whenever we try to save the same department twice, we'd get an exception that this particular department already exists. So what you're going to do here is going to just quickly proceed to save, and to do that we need to have an entity of the department. So you're going to have the department, and then I'm going to have this one, a department request, and then you're going to have the model mapper dot map. So we are going to map the department request, as you can see, automatically as the first argument, and then to which class do we need to convert this one to? We want to have this one as the department dot class. So we need to have that conversion. Then once you are done with that, we are going to do the department repository dot save, and then we are going to save our department request, and in this case we are going to supply that, and as you can see, the save method will be able to return as a department. So we are going to have this one as department saved, so going to be that. And then once you have this, then now we need to return a department response from the saved department. So to do that, we are going to quickly say return, and we are going to make use of the model mapper dot map. Now we are going to map the saved department to the department response dot class. So we are going to do that. So that is our initial method for implementing this particular create department. Let's now proceed and have the other method. So this is the end-to-end of integration between the controller and all that. So we are going to have now a section which will be able to list all our departments that we have just created. So we are going to have a list of a department response. So we are going to have the department response, and then we are going to say lists. And this one we don't expect anything. For now, we're just going to have at get mapping. Remember to annotate this one at get mapping. So I'm going to use the same path, and then I need to import this one as util. Alright, so we need now to say department service. We're going to say return department service dot list all. So I'm going to have that as list all. Because at the moment we don't have this particular function, I'm going to do a quick fix again and introduce that method and go to this method within the interface, save that, and you'll be able to see that I need to do the implementation for that. So quick fix again, add an implemented method. Now here we need to list all the details from the database. So to do that, we are just to have a quick fix here, return. We are going to return the department repository dot find all. So we are going to find everything, and then we are going to stream each element in that list. And then what you're going to do, we are going to map. We are going to map this particular. So for each department, we are going to get a department entity, department. Then we are going to map that to the model mapper dot map. So we are going to map the department entity into the department response. Alright, dot class. And then from there we are going to do dot after doing all that, we are going to do dot to list. So that's all that we need. So the first thing is just to find all, and then from there we are going to stream. Then after streaming, we are going to map each element using the model mapper into a department response. Once everything is sorted, then we have converted to a list, and that will be able to give us a list of department response. Quite simple, so you can see, but then using our injected bin of the model mapper. That is why we need to have it, so that we can be able to convert between different classes easily. Alright, now let's expose the third interface, and this one is going to be getting a particular department. So we are going to have a simple one. So you're going to have a at get mapping. So you're going to have at get mapping. Then here we are going to expect to have the department number. So you're going to expect a department number as the path variable, and then we need to respond back with a department response, and then from here we are going to just say get by department number, right? Which is ideally the idea of the department entity. And then here the department number is not going to come as a request param, but then it's going to come as a path variable. So we're going to change this one to path variable, and then we expect it in the integer form. So we're going to have integer and then the department number. All right, so if we want to have this, you can see that we are going to expect a path variable. So it's going to be /API/department, then slash the department number, and then what you're going to do is going to make use of the return service call, and then we are going to do return, and we are going to make use of get by department number, and in this case we are going to supply the department number here. Alright, so quickly we are going to have this quick fix create method, and then go to the method. So you can see this is the response, and then what you're going to do here is again have the quick fix, add the method, and you can see that now our method has been added down here. So what you're going to do here is going to be simple again. So you're going to do department repository dot find by ID. So you're going to have an optional department back, and now this is going to make use of the department number, or else we are going to throw a particular exception, and we need to send a supplier in. So you're going to throw an exception, and in this case you're going to throw using the lambda. So you're going to make use of a simple supplier. In this case you're going to throw new exception. So you're going to have new runtime exception. So you're going to have this one as a runtime exception. Then our message is going to be simple. We are going to say department with, then we are going to have the plus the department number, then plus we are going to say plus that doesn't exist. So we are going to have does not exist. Alright, so department with, department number does not exist. So you can say here I need to have what? Okay, that's simple, and then from there I need to have a semicolon at the end. So you can see now we have this one. Alright, so we find first the department, and if it's there we need to map this one. So what you're going to do, assigning this one into a local variable. So I'm going just to introduce a local variable here, which is going to be department that we have found with that ID. If it doesn't exist, then we are going to call this particular exception will be thrown. Now the next thing that we need to do is just return the model mapper, mapping the department to the department response. So we are going to map that one to department response dot class. Alright, so that's all that we need for the get department by number. So what you're going to do again is simple. You're going to introduce another controller for a value, which is going to be two things here. So I'm going to have another put mapping. So I'm going just to have put mapping. We're just going to update our department, and in this case we're going to have put mapping to the same department number here. We expect a department response as the department response return type, and then this one you need to say update. Right, then for the department number I'm going to update using ideally using the query params. So I just need to update the name of the I need to update the name of the department, because that's the only field that I need to update. So to do that, I'm going to also receive that as a query param. So I'm going to have that as okay, fine. We can make use of the same. We need to have a same structure as the department request. So I'm going to combine the department request as the value that I expect to have. So I'm going just to expect a department request, something that can be mapped into a department request using the same fields. So you can see that I'm going to have a request body, which is going to be department request, containing only one particular field, which is the department name, to update. Then from here we need to take this department number and have it here. Sorry, we need to have it here as the integer. So we are going to have integer here. Alright, so this is a path variable, and then followed by the payload that we are going to update. So what I'm going to do is going to be simple here. We're going to have this one, department service dot update department, and then we are going to have this update department with the department request as one of the arguments, and also the department number. So you need to have those two supplied in this particular function. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to return ideally. So I'm going to make use of return that. Right, so for this, I'm going to do a quick fix again, create this particular method within the interface. So you can see that now the interface is created. We need a department response back, and then we have the integer number, and then we have the department payload for update. Now the next thing that I need to do is to go to the service layer and then expose, add an implemented method, and in this case we are going to have a simple implement method, which is going to be simple. First thing that we are going to do is find the department. So we need to find the department here. We need to find the department and then update the field of department name if it does not exist. So at the same time, once you find the department, we need also to ensure that the department name doesn't exist in the database. So we are also going to introduce another method. We are going to do check if. We are going to do a check if the department name exists. So we are going to also check that before we do an update. So to get started, we are going to have the department. So in this case, we are going just to make use of get the department by, we are going to make use of our current function, which is get the department, which is ideally goes to the DB and does that. So we are going to say department. So into the department is going to be equal to, we are going to make use of our current function that we have already added up here. And then we are going to do the call to the database using the same department number. So that is reusing the previous function. And you can see that this one is going to give us a department response back. So I'm going to go the direct way of having this one same way. So in that case, I'm going to have this. Alright, so I need to have that department that way. So I'm searching again to the DB, getting the department, and then from there I need to have a way of knowing whether the department name exists within the DB before I update. So I'm going to make use of another check. I'm going to have this one as boolean, department name exists. So I'm going to check if this particular department name within the department request exists. So I'm going to do the department repository dot exists by. So I'm going to say find by department name. So I need to go to the department request. I'm going to search by department, find by department name, right? So I'm going to search that, and then I need to supply the department request, which is going to be this dot get department name. And this one will be able to give me whether it exists. So this function doesn't exist in the repository, so I'm going to do a quick fix, create this particular method within the department repository. And once I go to this one, you can see that I'm going to have find by department name. But then this should not be the correct method. Then let me just walk you through how we can be able to get the correct, to check whether this one exists. Alright, so we're going to go to our browser, and then we're going to do Spring Data JPA methods naming conventions. So we're going to do this one. So we're going to go to the query methods here, and then scroll down and checking if it exists. So we're going to do check. This is distinct ending not. Alright, okay, so on this one, you'll be able to see how the different ways in which you can be able to generate the query methods. So we have different query methods, so you can be able to check on this Spring Docs.io JPA reference query methods, and you can be able to see what ideally is going to happen whenever you want to give the naming convention of a Springboard to generate the by default methods without writing any simple query. So for now, we are going to make use of find by department name, and we are going to counter check whether this one will be able to work using the Boolean return type. So what we're going to do here is, one, we need to check if we got the department. You're going to throw an exception if it's not there. The second one is that if the department name exists within the DB, we are going to make an if condition. So we are going to do here, if the department name exists, then what we are going to do, we are going to throw a new runtime exception, runtime exception. And in this case, we are going to say the department with the department name, we can say department name as already name, then the department name here, which is going to be the department request dot get the department name has already been taken. So we're going to say has already been taken. Alright, so that is all we are going to do. Otherwise, we are going to proceed and update our department. So we are going to take the department dot set department name to be the department request dot get department name. Right, so that's all that we need to have whenever we want to make an update for the department. Then once we have this department updated, then we are going to say department repository. So we are going to make use of the repository dot save again the new department with the updates. So this is going to synchronize the database with the new changes, and automatically is going to give us back an updated department. So we are going to say department updated equal to that. Again, we need to return now the department response from that. So I'm going just to copy the same thing that we had here and make use of the updated as the argument here. And then you're going to convert the department response. As you can see, all our logic is done and dusted. So that's how we are going to have our update department. We have to ensure that we don't want to update a name which is going to throw as an exception. Alright, so all that said and done, we need to expose the last controller element, which is going to be the delete. So we're going to have delete mapping. So delete, in this case, we need to have a simple one here. So delete mapping. Do you have an error? First of all, I need to ensure that everything is okay. Then from here, I need to have to delete mapping. Then we are going to also have a similar structure as the put, but then in this case we are going to have delete mapping instead of put mapping. And then we don't expect a payload for the delete, so we are going to delete by default. Then this is going to be delete department, and in this case I'm going to return a simple map of string to indicate success, string, comma, string, boolean. So I'm going just to have a map of object in this case, which is going to indicate the success code and all that. So I'm going to import that. Then from here we are going to do delete department, and in this case we are going to supply the department number alone. Right, so we don't have this particular method, so I'm going to do a quick fix and then create that method in the department service. So you can see on the department service I have that, so I need to quickly have the implementation within the department service, and in this case I'm going to add a new method. Let me see, department delete. I need to have this one as delete department, right? So delete department, and we're going to go to the department service, which is supposed to be this. Change the name as delete department, and now here I need to implement that particular method down here. Right, so what I'm going to do is make use of delete department repository dot delete. So I'm going just first to delete the department. So in this case you're going to delete by ID. So I'm going just to delete by ID department number. So if there's no exception that is thrown, then we return a new map. So I'm going just to create quickly a map here. So map of string and object. So I'm going to have that as a map equal to new hash map, and then from there I'm going to say map dot put, and then we are going to have put as success is going to be true. Alright, so once you have that, then we can now return the map as map. Alright, so that's quite simple. That's an end-to-end demonstration of this. So what I'm going to do is ensure that everything is cleaned up correctly, and all that is going to remove these quick fix, remove unused imports, and all is done and dusted. So everything looks okay. So you can see everything now looks okay. So we have an end-to-end implementation of our controller logic. So in the next phase, we are going to try and test these particular endpoints and confirm, and then we start on working on unit testing. All right. Thank you. Remember to subscribe for the next session so that we can be able to learn together as we do this particular service. Thank you. Remember to subscribe and share the link, and click on the notification icon to get more updates whenever I upload new videos. Thank you.